part of the reason why I didn't like it, Scarface the 83 version, is because a lot of the older people in my family who were of the age to watch this movie and really appreciate it thought it was the greatest thing ever and compared it to other great movies. And I just saw it as like this campy, over the top nonsense. But rewatching it, yeah, it's camping over the top. Oh my God, is it fun? It is so. I don't know if I've ever had so much fun watching a movie in the last 20 years. Like, this was so much fun. It's a long movie, but it doesn't feel long because there's so many quotable lines. Like, first you get, hey Chico, first you gotta get the money, then you get the power, then you get the women. And you got the rules to the game. He's like, never underestimate the other guy's greed. And then and then you got Michelle Pfeiffer. Rule number 2, never get high on your own supply. And of course, for those who are familiar with like Biggie Smalls,
know you heard this before.
Don't get high on your own supply.
The 10 Crack Commandments, where he goes over those commandments as well. He extrapolates on that. Being someone in Brooklyn, that was a big song for me growing up as well. So this is a thing that had a strong influence on hip hop culture, a strong influence on other films moving forward, and obviously it was influenced by a movie before it. But yeah, is this movie cartoonish? Absolutely. Is a great actor like Al Pacino in his prime, was this probably beneath him? You're goddamn right, this guy was in The Godfather. Is this portrayal of a Cuban completely stereotypical and maybe even borderline offensive? Fucking yeah. If he was doing that in this era, he'd be canceled. But is this movie entertaining? It's an 11 out of 10 for entertainment. The push it to the limit, the playing the whole goddamn song in the middle of the movie, the bags and bags of money, and then like the banker, his eyes bugging out of his head as he's seeing everything. He got the tiger as a pet. It was just over the top. And then him betraying the gangster. Tony, you fucked me, Tony. I told you don't cross me, Tony. And then Tony doing all the piles of coke and dipping his face into it. And behind him, you see in the cameras all the guys coming in and infiltrating his mansion to come and kill him. His sister with the naked saying, "Come and take me to, say hello to my little friend." It's just like everything about this movie. The bad guy, you guys can say goodnight to the bad guy. Like, everything about this movie is great, man. And I can go on and on and on, but at some point I have to let you get a few words in, don't I?
Well, maybe, but yeah, it's a very entertaining movie, without a doubt. And I remember when this movie came out, and I really wanted to see it, but I was too young. And so I actually bought the book because, at the time you could buy these movie tie-in books. And I would do that, because I wanted to see these R-rated movies that I couldn't get into. So I'd buy the book and I'd read it. So that was my first experience, was reading that book. And then eventually I saw the movie. And of course I loved it. And I believed at that time that it was not a remake, because that's what some people had been saying. This is not a remake. This is just, they've taken the title and they've made their own movie. But when I did finally see the original, I was shocked at how pretty much they're the same movie. And the thing with the sister, which I couldn't believe was in the original, and the world is yours, as you commented on. That's such an iconic thing, where it inspires him, and then I guess he takes it and he puts it inside his house in the 80s version. The world is yours. It's like it's a special symbol for him. And there it is in the original movie. It's totally there. So why some people said this wasn't a remake, I don't know. I don't know why they would have said that, but yeah, it's an enormously entertaining film. Every time I watch it, you're right, it does not feel like 3 hours. It's almost 3 hours long. It's just a completely fun ride. There's no way around it. And it's super violent. It's super edgy. It's over the top. It's everything you could want in a movie, really.
Yeah.
What more can you say?
I think we talked about, what was it we talked about ad-libbing with James Cagney, where he ad-libbed the fruit scene. And I said, like, it's great when actors do that. And I mentioned Midnight Cowboy, where the cab almost hit Dustin Hoffman is I'm walking over here. It
Yeah.
almost feels like Al Pacino's riffing this whole movie. Like everyone else is doing their parts, and Al Pacino's just like, "Yo, fucking guy, this fucking guy, no motherfucker," and he's just like doing that in the background. And I'm like, let me see that script. Are all these fucks and motherfuckers actually written in the script, or is he just like riffing as these scenes are going on? Especially in that car ride where they're gonna kill the senator or the politician, and then the wife and kids go in the car, and he's like, "Shut the fuck up," and he's like, "Yeah," he's like, "Fuck you, man. You don't talk to me like that. You don't do like that, man. I don't kill no women and kids, man. I don't kill no fucking cockroach." And he's just ripping and go. I'm like, there's no way all that's in the script because he's just nonstop talking to himself in the car, going on and on and on. But just his energy was amazing. We already went into the 32 version with our review for that, and how much I loved Paul Mooney's performance, and how I seeked out every movie Paul Mooney made after that until I got to the Earth movie. What was it?
The good Earth.
Until I got to the Good Earth, and I'm like, you know what, I had enough. Yeah. But yeah, as much energy as Paul Mooney brings, and the charisma, Al Pacino matches him here. I mean, Al Pacino is just on top of his game. No, this isn't. Again, I could see why people didn't like this, because in the 70s, Al Pacino was a serious actor. He was in Panic in Needle Park. He was in the Godfather movies. He was in Serpico. And these are not just great movies. These are serious movies. These are Oscar movies. These are culture-changing movies. Because the 70s, people took filmmaking very seriously, which is why in the 80s, like, movies that are campy like this took off, because it's like, people got tired of like the 30-minute, Doors song, or the 20-minute Led Zeppelin song, and like the 4-hour Deer Hunter movie. Like the 70s were a time where people took themselves really seriously. So the shift to the 80s, where it was just all about like pop and fun and, quick short songs and short movies, and just like, we're going to play the entire music video in the movie, and these Rocky movies and montages and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think, if you isolate this movie and say, this is a bad career move for Al Pacino, this is not what I expect for Al Pacino, you have to look at the culture at the time. And it was just a culture shift, and he was just shifting into that culture. He wasn't going to keep making Serpico movies in the 80s, because that's not what people wanted. This is what people wanted. This is why I think the fan loves this movie more than the critics, and why maybe it hasn't aged as well, because over time, you don't put things into the context that they belong in. Instead of putting this into the context of the 80s, they just look at this overall body of work and say, hey, Godfather is way more better as a film critic. Like when I'm watching The Godfather and I'm watching this piece of crap, I'm like, oh, no, you have to put things into the context. And contextually, the 80s, the cocaine, the full music video in the middle of the movie, the one-liners, again, the cultural impact, Money, Power, and Respect, that was a big song that was part of some of the dialogue. 10 Crack Commandments, that was another hip-hop song, part of the dialogue. This is a huge influence on the culture. Grab the Yayo, that was a line that people took that clip and put them in like little skits in their videos, and people started using the term Yayo instead of cocaine. Just all that stuff. And even like the great moments, like a lot of the great moments, like you said, was strictly taken from the 32 version. But there was a lot of great original moments in this. Like when he pretended like his friend was his brother, so that they would kill him first, instead of, he's like, oh no, don't kill him, he's my brother. It's like, it was not his brother. He was just stalling for time, because he knew after a certain amount of time, he told him, like, if I'm not here after 15 minutes, you got to come and get me, So just like clever things like that. I just thought this movie was just amazing. Yes, it's campy, it's over the top, it's silly, but that's what the 80s were, and this movie is a time capsule for the 80s. Again, critics are going to love the original more than they love this. I too love the original more than I love this, but I also acknowledge that, like, you can't say Paul Mooney did a great performance and Al Pacino did the shitty over the top performance. They both were over the top. They were both ridiculous. Paul Mooney's a fucking Jew. He's not Italian. I don't care if like Pacino's not Cuban. Like Paul Mooney wasn't Italian either. And they both played it way over the top. So I think, yes, I love the original more. But to me, people that view the remake as just like Crash and the original as like one of the greatest movies ever made, you might be right. but don't shit over the remake. The remake is a fucking great movie too, and they're both like super freaking entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I enjoy this movie a lot. Interesting too that Brian De Palma directed this movie, and he's kind of known as kind of a Alfred Hitchcock imitator, I guess. A lot of his movies are very Alfred Hitchcock, you know, Dressed to Kill, Body Double. This movie sits there in between, and it's really nothing like Hitchcock, right? It's a completely different kind of movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it works, you know? It might be one of his more loved movies in a way. People really love this movie. They're huge fans who walk around quoting this movie all the time.
Oh my God, there's so many quotable lines. How can you not quote
Yeah,
it?
exactly. So, yeah, it's definitely worth watching if people haven't seen it. And even if they have, it's worth watching again because I guarantee you don't remember everything.
Yeah, yeah. And again, even if you like the original and you view the original as a classic, that shouldn't tarnish how you view the remake. And if you like the remake and you've never heard of the original, trust me, you're gonna love it. Even though it's old black and white, they're both great movies. You know,
Yeah.
one is more serious great and one is more entertainment great, but they're both immense watches and they're both fun. And even if you think like, hey, a 3-hour movie is too much, it's the type of movie where you could just like be walking in and out of the room and just catch particular scenes and be entertained. Like you don't even have to watch the full context of the movie. You could just watch a random scene, and even just if you don't believe me, just skip through the movie and pick on a random scene. You're just gonna be like, oh my God, this is so much fun, you know?
Yeah.
Or you can even just like pause it and then like come back to it later. You won't lose anything. This isn't some like intricate plot where you just have to like dissect it as you go along. It's just a fun movie.
Follow these rules, you'll have mad bread to break up. If not, 24 years on the wake up.